Hey everybody, welcome back to another Steelers practice recap from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Brian Batko, joined by Ray Fittipaldo. As always, these updates brought to you by Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci, mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with over 85 years of experience. Call them now if you need a free consultation. And Ray, we're back at the Southside facility, UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, sharing it with the Pitt football team. I've got my ACC football hat on to mark the occasion. What does that mean for the Steelers? Well, they're back practicing behind closed doors to prepare for their third and final preseason game and the regular season. What does it mean for us and you? Well, we won't be able to tell you everything we saw out there at practice today. I can send you a little crumb from the beginning. Pat Freiermuth caught a touchdown at the end of their two-minute drill, but other than that, not going to be the same kind of updates we get from the drill.
No, and if I had to say a big headline today, Brian, it would be Broderick Jones. He talked after practice today. I think everyone out in Steelers Nation wants to know what's going on with Broderick. He refuses to say the elbow is an issue, but if there was one piece of news that we found out today was he's actually dealing with multiple injuries in his words. So at this point, we don't know what else is going on besides the elbow. Everyone can see that brace. He says flipping sides, back left to right, right to left isn't an issue. So we'll see what happens against Detroit. I think the Steelers are going to run him out there and see if they're going to have a competition at left tackle. If he performs the same way he did against the Bills, I don't think there's going to be much of a competition.
Yeah, and he's never used the left and right tackle thing as an excuse, which is completely unlike the current starting left tackle, Dan Moore, who has pretty much said from the beginning he doesn't feel comfortable on the right side. So a tale of two tackles and how they feel about playing their position. One, a first-round pick of whom much is expected, and the other, a fourth, who's managed to stick around this long. And I don't know if we're going to see Broderick Jones really get to push Dan Moore at their mutual position, because he has been on the right side with Troy Fautanu still banged up. And yeah, Ray, they reconvened here today to start picking up the pieces from that putrid preseason performance against the Buffalo Bills at Acrisure Stadium. And yeah, the big storyline is the offensive line, the 4 sacks they allowed early in that game. And beyond just Broderick Jones, got an update as well from the guy who we think is going to be the bookend with him eventually, Troy Fautanu, the first-round pick this year, but he's still not quite ready to go just yet.
No, he didn't give us a firm timeline, but he did say he plans to be ready for the season opener in Atlanta, whatever role that would be. You know, obviously, starting and being a reserve is different if you don't have enough practice time leading up to that game. I did ask him, I did get an answer about when he was injured. He was injured late in the first quarter, so he played an entire quarter on a sprained knee. That's when they went in at halftime, and they, you know, he wasn't fitted for a brace. They said, no, you're not going back out there. You got an MCL sprain. So, you know, a little bit of news on Troy today, but still no firm timeline about when he'll be back to practice.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that kind of goes with the toughness that they knew they were getting out of him in the draft. I mean, he's definitely somebody who's going to grit it out if he can, so you do give him credit for that. But we'll see if he's not able to play in this game. It's going to cast a lot of doubt on his status for week 1 against the Falcons, even though there is about a good week there of prep in between. Mike Tomlin didn't get into, as a new week begins, who is and isn't going to play in the preseason finale, but he said he pretty much treats this third exhibition like he always did the third exhibition, which was the dress rehearsal. In his eyes, that 4th preseason game, as you all have memories sitting on your couch watching the Steelers versus the Panthers with a bunch of guys you never heard from again, that's pretty much out. Mike Tomlin he's not going to use that, hey, this is the last one, we just want to coast into the regular season, we're going to sit down all the starters and contributors. No, it sounds like, even though he's not committing one way or the other on how much we'll see of Russell Wilson, how much we'll see of Justin Fields and the other starters, you'd have to think after what we saw from his offense, he's probably going to want them to get some good work again.
Certainly the offensive line is going to have an extended run. We got done talking about Broderick, but Brian, it's been multiple guys on that line who have had issues with execution. So I would expect the line to be out there for a good run, probably into the second quarter. You know, I have questions about Najee. You know, Jalen Warren is hurt. Najee's healthy now. You don't want to get him injured and have to go to Cordero Patterson week 1 against the Falcons if you don't have to. So I think they'll be smart with Najee Harris. Also on defense, TJ Watt. He's proven to us he doesn't need a preseason. I don't know that he'd be out there much. Cam Hayward, probably Minka too. But for the vast majority of the guys who are starters, I think they'll at least play a little.
And we heard from Arthur Smith today before practice as well. And I don't know about you, Ray, but I think the big kind of takeaway from him was it wasn't good. It needs to be better. There are individual battles we need to win and procedural issues that doesn't matter if you're playing in a preseason game or the Super Bowl. Right. If you make those mistakes, it's going to be really bad film for you and your offense. However, the flip side, a lot of what he was telling us was, I don't know that he didn't say he was going to keep his offense vanilla. He said a lot of teams do this time of year, and that you're not going to get too cute or too crazy and show a bunch of what you've got. He sort of tried to strike the right balance between accountability and everybody relax a little bit. This is still the preseason, and we're trying to find out about these guys a lot more than we're trying to game plan to beat the Bills.
Yeah, obviously, once you get into the season, there are going to be game plans,
matchups to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't see that in the preseason. However, you do want to see your right tackle execute a one-on-one block and pass protection. You do want to see your receiver, and I'm talking about Calvin Austin, not take a false start penalty that forces a 3rd and 10.
And we saw how angry Arthur Smith was getting about those pre-snap flags in camp.
Yeah, so those are just basic things that are controllable that we haven't seen controlled in the first 2 preseason games. So when Arthur Smith talks about playing clean and Mike Tomlin says playing clean, that's what they mean. You know, the self-inflicted wounds, you know, in these games, they want to eliminate those before the start of the season. So, you know, I see where Arthur's coming from, but when you score 3 points in a preseason game, in the week prior, what did they score? Against the Texans. They scored one touchdown.
Right. Yeah.
That's not good enough. They're going to have to get better. And, you know, hopefully for their sake, it's against the Lions on Saturday.
Yeah, and he's strayed pretty far from a lot of pointed criticism of the quarterbacks. I mean, mainly he said he gives Russell Wilson credit for being a gamer who's willing to even go out there for a 5th series when he was getting hammered. But the other thing that Arthur Smith said, I think it was probably his last comment, was it's not up to him anymore to make a decision on who the starting quarterback is. He did that the last 3 years in Atlanta. Granted, he didn't have to make that call when he had Matt Ryan, but point being, that burden is the word he used. That is not on him. That's on Mike Tomlin. He'll give his input, but I feel like there's still a lot to see from these 2 guys going into week 1. And, you know, Russell Wilson's still very much in pole position, but there wasn't a lot to see from him against the Bills.
No, it's hard to get a read on a guy when, you know, he was under as much pressure as he was against the Bills. You know, I think the main differences between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields right now is Russell can get them in and out of the huddle, get them into the right play, you know, get to the 2nd, 3rd reads on passing plays. What Justin provides is something that Russell really can't because of his calf injury. He can get outside the pocket, escape pressure, and make things happen when the play breaks down. Now, people have argued the plays are breaking down quite a bit. Maybe Justin Fields is the best option, but again, it's the preseason. I think a lot of these things will be ironed out before the start of the regular season.
And we'll likely hear from Russell Wilson tomorrow, and then we'll hear from Mike Tomlin on Thursday about how much each of those guys expect, Russ to play, Fields to play, and that'll tee us up well for Saturday in Detroit. Oh, the other news of the day before we go, Nate Herbig on IR. Yep. So the depth chart #1 center, he's going to be lost for the entire season, but we pretty much knew it was going to be Zach Frazier's show, thanks to Jerry Dulack's reporting earlier this week. For Ray Fittipaldo, I'm Brian Batko. Thanks as always for tuning in to the Post-Gazette Sports YouTube page. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.